What are the 10 essentials? If you need gear for your next outdoor adventure, check out my Amazon storefront, link in the description. The 10 essentials for hiking and camping were first developed in the 1930s by a group based out of Seattle known as the Mountaineers. Eventually, this list of 10 items spread to the Boy Scouts of America and other hiking groups and backpacking groups around the world. Originally, the list comprised 10 specific items, but now it has evolved into a systems-based approach with a range of items in that particular category. So today is my twist on the 10 essentials. I'm going to go over the 10 essentials. I'm going to talk about the flexibility of each one and how there's room for interpretation within all of these essentials, depending on your intended adventure, your budget, etc. First up, water. More than a minimal requirement. What does that mean? It means bring more water than you think you're going to need. And for a lot of people, that's tough to do because they don't know how much water they're going to consume. I love it when my water's wet, don't you? So a good rule of thumb for water is roughly... Now this is super flexible, and a lot of it has to do with environmental conditions, your fitness level, but if you use that as an initial starting point, if that is the minimum of what I need, I'm going to want to bring more than that because the essential water component is more than the minimal requirement. The next category is sun protection, and this becomes really important if you are someone who is rocking the same hairstyle as yours truly. The sun can wear you out quick. It can cause you to sweat more, which in turn will make you require more water. The next category is a light source. This could come in the form of a flashlight or a headlamp, or what I am particularly fond of using, a waterproof headlamp, since most of my adventures have to do with water, sea caves, waterfalls, stuff like that. Waterproof headlamp, super important, because if you got something in your backpack and you end up having to swim through a tidal pool or wade through a narrow pool section and your backpack gets wet and your headlamp is not waterproof and it gets dunked and you're hiking out in the dark, you're gonna wish you had a waterproof one. So this is something where there's a trade-off between weight and brightness and duration of batteries. You always want to bring extra batteries for whatever light source you have. If you're doing something like caving, they often recommend 2 to 3 light sources per person. So that is a situation where you're going to want multiple light sources, and often when Sam and I go in caves, we usually have at least 2 to 3 light sources per person. Oftentimes our cell phone is one of those 3 light sources per person, but that's just a side note on the light source and how these essentials can change depending on the adventure that you're getting into. Fourth essential, food, more than the minimal requirement. Today I'm out for a leisurely stroll, maybe just an hour or 2 walk out in the bush, and so I might normally eat one of these bars, so I brought 3 because that's more than a minimal requirement. This becomes a tricky game of risk versus reward when you're doing multi-day hikes in the backcountry. If you're doing through hikes, you have to weigh how much extra to bring. Oftentimes in a day hike, it's no big deal. If I'm gonna eat 2 bars that day, I'll bring 4 or 5, it doesn't really matter. But once you get into like 3 and 4 day hikes, you can't just bring double your food because that weight adds up real quickly. I know a lot of thru hikers like to pack nutrient dense stuff, so they'll go with like jars of peanut butter, stuff that's super dense, doesn't take up a lot of space, and they get the most calories for their space, usually with something like that, Nutella peanut butter, something along those lines. Holding those bars made me hungry. Oh, look at this. As soon as the food comes out, look who wants to be my friend. Hey buddy, I'm not gonna feed you. I don't feed wildlife. No, I don't feed wildlife. As soon as the food comes out, the wekas are your friends. Come on, man. Hey, haven't you ever heard a fed bird is a dead bird? Haven't you ever heard that one? No. That's my bar, man. Next category is tools, and this usually refers to like a pocket knife or multi-tool, but it's kind of a broad category in the sense that it really is dependent on the type of adventure that you're doing. If you're doing like a pack raft mission, for example, you'd want to make sure that in your toolkit there's a repair kit for the pack raft. I kind of bracket, like when we do canyoneering things, gear specific to canyoning or canyoneering. That's kind of in the tools category, so I can't rappel a canyon if I don't have my rope and my harness. Those are essential tools for that particular sport. I also consider my water filter a tool, and I consider that in that same category. Normally I bring my water filter, however there are sometimes I don't, and that is, for example, if I'm in a desert and I know there's not going to be any water around, save the weight, just carry extra water, no need to bother with the filter. If you're bike packing or mountain biking, maybe Allen keys or a wrench, some sort of repair toolkit for that bike, but that is kind of just a general category, just dependent on what you're getting into. If you're a fisherman, or if you would maybe fish to survive in a situation, maybe some fish hooks and line as part of your essential toolkit along with your multi-tool or knife that you bring along with you. Next, we've got a fire source, and typically this comes in the form of a lighter or matches. I like this little waterproof matches case. Comes with a little tinder bundle at the top of it. It's pretty handy. What I also like to carry, in addition to those, I call those consumable fire sources, matches and lighters. I also like to usually carry a flint and a steel, kind of a renewable spark fire source. Navigation. I love this whistle because it has a built-in compass, thermometer, and a magnifying glass. So whenever I can find something small and compact like this that serves multiple functions, I'm all in. So we've been carrying these for years, but the compass is the main reason I carry it for. Now, navigation is a broad category. Most of us use our cell phones, Google Maps, something along those lines, but it can get very complicated and expensive. You know, you can get the personal locator beacon, the Garmin InReach, where if you need a rescue, you just hit a button on your device and rescue is sent in. Or another good thing about the Garmin InReach or devices like that is you can just text to other InReach devices. So a broad spectrum of electronic navigation, but I recommend that you always bring, whenever possible, a paper map backup in case the device batteries die or it gets smashed or lost or something like that. You have the paper map backup and you have it in a dry bag or a plastic Ziploc bag so it doesn't get wet and destroyed. The next category in this list of the 10 essentials is shelter. Now this is also something that can have a broad range from the absolute budget to the expensive bivy sack. The idea of a shelter is something that is waterproof and that can insulate you. That could be a bivy sack, that could be a tarp, a part of a tarp, a plastic sheet, or a common budget item for this essential is just a big trash bag to keep you dry and insulated if you ever need to hunker down and bivy in a survival situation or to start the roof of your survival shelter. First aid kit is number 9 on this list of the 10 essentials, and these can go from the extremely basic, including an alcohol wipe and a couple band-aids, to the expensive pre-assembled ones you can buy. This is a custom-made one that we've used based off several lists online of how to pack a first aid kit for what adventure you're going to get into. But the basics are basic wound dressings, band-aids, antibacterial ointment, alcohol pads, something to take care of your blisters, maybe some insect repellent, maybe an ace bandage for a sprained ankle, and then more specific items depend on your medical needs. If you're allergic to bee stings, for example, and you carry an EpiPen, that should be part of your first aid kit. If you have asthma and you have an inhaler, that should be part of your first aid kit. If you take medication where you'll die without taking it for a day or two, you should definitely make sure that some of that medication is in your first aid kit. So these are highly customizable and pretty individual depending on your medical needs and what exactly you plan on getting into. Last but not least, number 10, clothing more than the minimal requirements. That means an extra layer in case it gets cold, maybe a rain jacket in case it starts raining, but the idea basically being whatever you're wearing, like if I was just wearing this t-shirt, if it gets colder or it starts raining, I'm screwed because I'm just wearing a cotton shirt. So an extra layer, raincoat. The raincoat could be that extra layer as well. Good idea to check the weather forecast before you head out and figure, oh, should I bring a raincoat or should I bring like a wool base layer or, you know, some thermals, or both if you have space. If you enjoyed this video on the 10 essentials, I made a free ebook for you to download called Adventure Essentials, which pairs some essential skills, fitness, and other tips to go along with these essential items that you pack for camping and hiking. So you can find the link in the description. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, get out there, find your adventure, and be infamous. Hey! What are you doing? Get!
Infamous.